All right. Um, Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome everyone to Lisa PodiumX series, the first panel discussion today. Lisa, lead incubator and startup accelerator founded by Stanford GSB participants for the lead community, is an ecosystem for innovators and startup founders. It's the first hybrid platform to incubate ideas to MVP and scale the ventures globally. PodiumX is our curated engagement platform designed within the Lisa for founders, venture capitalists, industry, thought leaders, products, and the emerging tech ecosystem speaker series. My name is Hira Dangle. I'm the founding partner at Lisa, and let me introduce other partners here as well. We have founding partners from Stanford GSB Lead, which includes Deepti Pao, based out of Switzerland, Edward Mundt, who is our moderator today as well, and he's based out of New York City, Joe Anthony, and he is based out of Sydney, Australia. Misa Baikov, who is based out of here, Silicon Valley. And finally, we have Paweł Adzlecki, based out of here in Silicon Valley and Los Angeles. I would like to thank you, each one of you, today's speakers, Stanford GSB Lead and Rebuild team members for supporting today's event. Today's panel discussion is focused on idea to MVP, Founders Insight, and we have incredible panelists joining us today from different geolocations. Edward Mundt, who is our moderator today, will be moderating today's panel, and we have our panelists today: Elle Rustique, founder and CEO at To Genie; Niran Shrestha, co-founder and CEO at Kwant.ai; Alfred Tom, co-founder and CEO at Wivity, and then Sachin Shah, founder and investor at Elevation Venture. With that, Edward, the floor is yours, and take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Hira. Great introduction. And as Hira just said, right, today we're here just to discuss with some founders of some great organizations, how they went from that initial idea, the genesis of everything, the whole way through MVP. We're going to talk about just the journey to get there and all the challenges and massive pivots, perhaps, that each founder faced. And then we're going to talk a little bit about getting customers, raising that first round of funding. And then if there's time, we're going to look to what everyone sees as we go forward in these very, very unique times. And then we're going to try to allow 10 to 15 minutes for a Q&A at the end. So without further ado, let's meet today's panelists. If we can start with Niran, if you can unmute and identify and introduce yourself and maybe talk just a few minutes about Kwant.ai.
Hi everyone, I'm Niran, CEO and co-founder of Kwant.ai. We are an IoT and predictive analytics company based out of New York. We currently serve the construction industry and manufacturing industry vertical. So basically we have smart sensors for increasing productivity and safety. Currently live on some of the largest projects in the country, including LaGuardia Airport, some of the largest data centers, and hospitals, as well as manufacturing facilities that are currently using our technology. And also have, we're currently also serving the industry for social distancing as well as contact tracing for business continuity.
Okay, thank you for that, Niran. And sorry, I'm getting used to mute and unmuting myself regularly. Next up, let's hear from Alfred Tom from Wivity. You there,
Sure.
Alfred?
Thanks for having me on. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So I'm the co-founder and CEO of Wivity. We actually started off as a hardware company and are now a software company. So we have some good insights on that. So basically what Wivity does right now is we're standardizing within the energy space a distributed ledger for bringing transparency to the security of cryptographic private keys. And private keys are things that you use with secure communications like HTTPS, cryptographic wallets, APIs, and in the energy space that has a lot of cybersecurity attackers, it's pretty important to make sure that the keys are protected in the proper manner. So that's what we're focused on right now.
Okay, great. Thank you, Alfred. Sachin?
Sure. Thanks for having me, everyone. My name is Sachin Shah. I am an entrepreneur first and a venture builder. I'm sympathetic to those that are starting businesses right now. Started as an entrepreneur in 2008 and right in the middle of that volatility. First created a SaaS company called Prevention Cloud and cut my teeth into the startup world there. And then about 4 years ago, created Elevation Ventures. Elevation Ventures is a venture builder where we have two separate sides where we're building ventures and investing in different concepts and ideas, and exactly what we're talking about today, taking them from idea to launch. We've got an e-commerce side where we're building e-commerce focused brands, taking them to different e-commerce channels. And we have our tech startup side where we're building various SaaS and consumer service enabled or technology enabled consumer service plays.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. That's a mouthful. Thank
Yeah.
you, Sachin. And last and certainly not least, Elle, you're on mute.
Okay. Hi. Good morning, everyone. So my name's Elle Rustique. I'm the CEO and founder of To Genie. We are an interesting mix of a mobile payments company and also social impact. And what we have built is a mobile payments platform that provides a cashless tipping solution for businesses, individuals whose work and employees rely on cash-based tips. We're basically optimizing existing technology, optimizing mobile payments technology, financial technology to solve this problem of people not having cash to tip, and increasingly now in this pandemic, looking for contactless, touchless ways of tipping. I like to think of ourselves as not like another vendor, but a way to send payments specifically for appreciation. So we had been working in the hotel and hospitality vertical. And as you all know, this industry is devastated. And so when you talk about the problem, I think I have a few things to say about, you know, how the problem gets defined in different landscapes. So right now we're pivoting to different industries, and it's been fascinating. So we're in stealth mode for a pilot in the Northwest with a fast food chain that's looking to introduce tipping. And also other vacation rentals, other aspects of the tourism industry, which are flourishing because people don't want to go to hotels. They're also looking to introduce forms of payment, specifically tipping. And then we're also looking at virtual events on online platforms like Zoom, others that are bringing all of their events and fundraising to virtual ways. And so that's kind of where we are. We're evolving in those ways.
Okay, great. So Elle, while we have you, maybe do you want to be the first to sort of explain how you went from that initial idea through really where you are, or at least when you got to your MVP, what that was like?
Yeah, so I have an interesting background. I'm doing mobile payments and financial services, but I actually started out there at Stanford in education as a social scientist, as a qualitative researcher in this area of equity, opportunity, access. And so when I decided that this problem was something that I wanted to solve, and it was very personal about tipping, I brought to it this kind of perspective of how to look at a problem and how to think about it systemically. So the problem is, you know, for me, it was personal. My mother was a hotel housekeeper, and I was experiencing increasingly, as I'm sure all of you have had that experience of not being able to leave a tip when you're traveling in a hotel. And it struck me that the technology exists to leave payments. You can balance your portfolio, you can send money, you know, do all kinds of things, and yet you can't leave a simple tip with your phone. And so because this problem was something that resonated with me, and the experience of my mother earning tips and it really making a difference in our childhood, you know, when she earned tips, she would, you know, she'd take my brother and my sister and me to McDonald's. And so I felt this very strong mission to solve this problem. And I felt like the technology was there to exist. And so, you know, it was just about connecting dots. So that's the problem. And as far as taking it to MVP, we started out creating like a mobile app, and found that, you know, that MVP didn't work because people didn't want to download an app in the middle of a travel fast transaction. So we then developed another MVP, which is a web-based app, and that's where we are now, to be a turnkey solution. And now we're pivoting to put those two things together and becoming more of an enterprise platform. So that's our third MVP. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. It's really a fascinating business. Dealing with some of that myself, I can see a lot of the challenges, and I've just been thinking for a few minutes. So yeah, it sounds like a great idea, and best of luck.
Yeah. I think the challenge is trying to map, I think the opportunity in terms of like a business one, and having to kind of keep up with that. And yeah, I think that's just all the markets that are there. What is the best one for generating revenue, for raising money? So it's like I'm always thinking about like the product market fit above just, you know, the technology.
Right. And just thinking operationally, when you look at just how many people are unbanked in this country, it's really astounding.
Yeah.
But no, that's great, Elle. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Niran, do you want to tell us a little bit more about Kwant.ai and your journey?
Sure. Yeah, it's been quite a journey, and Hira knows that pretty well. My background, I did my master's and undergraduate in architecture and construction. So my background was basically what the business and product is about. So because it's a certain vertical, we know what the problem we're trying to solve, because I was a part of that industry myself. And then, you know, it was just like solving my problem. So that was pretty interesting. And we still do till now, where I always believe that like we build a wireframe and we build the product, and then like put it out to the customer as fast as possible, so that they can start testing it and then give us the feedback, rather than us building the entire product and realizing that, okay, it didn't work out. So I actually like try to put my product out in the hands of the customer as fast as possible. My engineers don't agree with me with that all the time though. It took us some time. Like we started off with a mobile app like everybody else, and 3 years ago. And then, however, we realized that mobile apps were not the right solution for the problem we're trying to solve. It was a wearable IoT that now we evolved into a wearable company. And since then, like our growth has been like really strong. And as I mentioned, like, so more than 6,000 construction workers are using our sensors every day in the field.
Okay, yeah, and Niran, if you could help me just, looking into Kwant.ai, it looks like, there are quite a few complementary type things that you guys could be doing. Do you consider yourself and the product more based for project management or code enforcement or maintenance?
Yeah, primarily, so safety is the biggest thing. Like 4 people die on a construction job site every day. That's like 1,200 person like in a year. That's just in US, and around 60,000 workers die on the job site around the world. So safety is a big thing. So working around safety, our wearable has a smart, it's a SOS button. So if anything happens, you can call for help. We have multiple cases where, a person was stuck in a zone, and like in airport construction where people are not allowed to enter because of security and safety reasons, you can know that the person entered an unsafe area. And then the wearable is basically tied up with the project management software, which is also part of our own system. And that basically what makes us unique is because we're the only company in the market right now that can bring together the real-time information using sensors in the field and combine that with the project cost and schedule. So I'll say we'll do both, but primarily focus on safety and productivity. That those were the core value proposition that I saw was a problem and try to like solve using this solution.
Wow, that's tremendous. Thank you, Niran. Alfred?
Sure. So I think I like to give an analogy for the startup journey from idea to MVP. A lot of people say it's a journey, and I think you can be pretty specific at what type of journey. It's not like plugging into Google Maps, you get in your car and you plug in your destination and you go. I think it's more like sailing, where you kind of know where you're going, but you have to look at the wind, it changes all the time, and the currents, a lot of things happen along the way. So when we started out building hardware. I came out of General Motors, my co-founder came out of Nokia. We worked together building industry standards together. So we wanted to build a wireless technology product based in hardware for addressing multiple different frequencies. And we ran into issues along the way and decided to take a software portion out of that piece of hardware and focus our whole company on the security software in our wireless hardware. And so that was our first pivot. We targeted this security product at the energy space. There was a regulation in California that specified that all products had to have a certain amount of security in it by a certain date. So we started targeting that regulatory date. We signed up a few customers, and then that deadline got pushed out, and it kept on getting pushed out. And so it's like the destination's there, but it keeps on going farther and farther, right? So we realized that we had to change then at that point. And so being a part of the consortium that we were involved with that was setting these standards, we recognized another problem that people had in this industry, and that was around ensuring the security of private keys used in the secure communications that they're trying to standardize. So we sort of changed to that direction, and that's the path we're on right now. So I think when you're a founder, you really have to pay attention to the wind. You have to pay attention to boats that are crossing your path, where you're trying to go. And if you're not continually monitoring those situations, you get off course pretty quickly. And so as a founder, I think you really need to have that data coming in and making sure that you're on the right course. You're integrating all the information that you can get. Because the one thing you are as a startup is you're really nimble. Bigger companies, even like Series A, Series B companies, they can't move as fast as you do. So you have to take advantage of that. The other thing I want to bring up is that MVP is not the goal, right?
Hi, John. Good afternoon. Good. Sorry, I was in a meeting, man. So much. Yeah.
Okay. So the MVP is not the goal. The goal is to get some type
Yeah.
of bankable track.
Alfred, you might
I'm
need
sorry.
to unmute. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Alfred, I'm sorry, you have to unmute.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
So
Thank you,
the MVP is not the goal. You have to show traction with that MVP. So when you bring out that MVP, it's best to have as much information as possible in terms of whether that MVP is going to have some traction. So that would be my other point.
Okay, and is Wivity still focused on the energy sector, or are you looking for other options at this point still?
Yeah, I mean, I really like Peter Thiel's book 0 to 1 when he says that you find an industry that you can have a really big impact on, and for us that was energy. So we continue to work closely with the energy space. We're working with the CPUC, all the electric utilities in California, some of the major inverter manufacturers on our product.
Okay, thanks, Alfred. And yeah, we'll get to that in the next question when we talk about finding those first customers. It sounds like that's where you're headed, so that's good. So finally, Sachin, doing a million different things. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got to be part of your journey?
Let me focus maybe on Prevention Cloud for this particular question. My first SaaS company, we went through, I guess, this natural progression of starting out as a service company with technology enabling our services. And I would like to say that we had lots of foresight into exactly what was about to happen, but that's not what happened. We raised $3 million to scale up what we were doing with others' technology. And the technology platform we were using was acquired by Cerner Healthcare within 6 months of us raising the money. And they told us we need to get off their platform. So we had 6 months to live or die. And we weren't quite sure. You know, we told the CFO of our investors what happened, and he didn't want to tell the board. So we were in this scenario of, okay, what do we do? And the question, it was basically, you know, sink or swim. And we decided to build our own tech platform. And another thing that you should never do is a very large customer approached us, and we said, okay, we'll try to take you on. I never suggest that for someone who hasn't built tech yet. And this was actually TriNet. So these guys had about 300,000 lives, and lives is the metric you use in healthcare at that time. And they came to us and said, okay, let's do a pilot for 3,000. And what do you have? And we had no tech platform built. So we immediately diverted all of our funding to hiring a tech team. And we got some UI screens, and we faked it till we made it. And we were able to at least get through a couple of years of that contract. And so I would say, number one, you know, you're right. It is kind of going, Alfred, going with the wind, but making the right decisions and quickly. And it's, you know, with that, as you start building your tech, whether it is unplanned, like in our scenario, or planned, I very much believe in one philosophy that has helped me in every venture I've been involved with, which is ask the customer what they want and give it to them. I feel like people they write books about how to build what customers want. It's very simple. And it's ask people what they want and give it to them. That's how you get started. You can progress beyond that into predicting what they want, testing it, validating it, and then building it out, and then doing that over and over and over and iterating. But the way you get started is just simply finding a problem that a customer has, showing them your concept. Don't be afraid to do so. So I tend to agree with whoever mentioned getting it out in front of your customers. I think Niran said that. I tend to get our concepts out in front of customers before they're even built. So I'll pause there, I guess.
Yeah, well, no, that's a nice lead into the next question or topic we wanted to discuss, Sachin, if we can keep you while you're going.
Yeah.
If you've got any sort of, well, I'm sure you've got plenty, but maybe an interesting story or two about, one of the startups really finding that first customer. Is it all just, a matter of networking? Like you mentioned, you didn't even have a platform yet, and you're already finding some pretty big customers. Sort of any sort of unique or interesting, like let's say I've got a great idea, I've gotten to MVP, but I really don't know anyone in a particular industry really, or my connections maybe aren't that far advanced.
Yeah.
Any suggestions there, or
Like a
really?
specific hack that we use on every venture we create is we go find advisors that already are passionate about that area and have some influence to potentially be a customer or bring customers, and get those advisors in. And I usually start that conversation, with, we're trying to solve this problem. I know you're passionate about X and we'd love your support. Once you start having that conversation, so there is in Under Elevation Ventures, we're building out something called PeopleWorks. It's a SaaS platform for coordinating freelance work as well as remote workers. And so the first thing we did last year when we put out the MVP, we found somebody off of signal.nfx, if you guys know that. If you don't know it, I'll type it. It's signal.nfx. It's a technology created by the venture firm NFX. And you can find venture investors that are interested in specific topics. So I found that this gentleman was very interested in future of work. We contacted him and said, here's what we're doing. We just need someone to test this. And I think it's all about being very truthful and setting the stage for what you're going to do in the test, because you will fail in multiple ways during your test. And it's just a matter of getting that feedback on how you're failing so you can fix it. And so that's kind of my hack, I would say, for getting out in front of your first customer, is find that advisor. And in this scenario, that advisor owned a large PR firm and immediately started using the platform. And even a year later, as we're now moving to a new version, before we're even done with the next technology, they're calling us to do more work. So find people that already have the problem, that are already talking about it, get them passionate about what you're doing, get them involved, and then leverage them. So finding champions.
No, that's a great summary. Thank you so much, Sachin. And thanks for also for sharing, the signal.nfx. Just a reminder to everyone on this call, this will be recorded and will be available. And maybe also we'll create a little summary of points that feature opportunities, as Sachin just mentioned. Let's see, where do we want to go next? Alfred, do you want to, since you were really, just about to really talk about that, finding customers, maybe if you could go ahead and give us some insight?
Yeah, I think it depends on your market, your target market. I've worked for consumer-oriented companies in the startup phase that have used tools like usertesting.com for an app to get feedback from users, if you're following that tact. For Wivity, we're an enterprise company. We sell at enterprise. And we found that two techniques were really good for us for getting customers beyond just going to our network. The first is going to trade shows. People are pretty open about giving feedback at trade shows, as long as you don't take up too much of the time. If you're not a customer, you can just go there with a demo and show people and keep people's interest. The second thing is, and this is because of our backgrounds and our expertise, is we work with consortiums. So industry consortiums are nonprofit organizations where there's a bunch of member companies part of the consortium. If their consortium dues aren't that high, you join the consortium. That's a small company, and you can start networking through the consortium. And that's a good way to get feedback as well. People are usually pretty open in the consortium to collaboration and new ideas. And that's kind of how Wivity got its current support base with our distributed ledger. That's through the Sunspec Alliance, which is an industry consortium in distributed energy.
Okay, yeah, and related to that, Alfred, given the current lack of trade shows and consortium meetings, at least, how has that evolved during COVID?
I think it's evolving. A lot of the trade shows that I have participated in the past are going virtual. And those are mainly limited by format and the software platforms that people use. I've seen all types of formats. Some are really good, some are really bad. But people are generally pretty open during this time to meeting other people through other means. Yeah, people are social beings. They can't shelter in place all the time. They're looking for outlets to meet new people. And so you just have to sign up for those newsletters, get involved with those virtual trade shows and go that route. Consortiums, on the other hand, are almost all virtual. Companies are on phone calls all the time, morning to night, middle of the night, if you're an international consortium. So people are used to that way of working. So I think that the COVID places a certain difficulty, but those two outlets, I think you can get around it.
Okay, so it sounds like if you're hustling really, it doesn't sound like it's had much effect with the volume of your touch points or interactions and networking, this current situation.
Yeah, I think the difficulty is understanding which newsletters, which virtual events to go to. That's harder to do right now.
No, okay, no, that's great. So let's see, let's go Niran.
You're losing Niran?
Maybe he's, well, let's, Elle, can you share your experience?
Yeah, so I'd say that we had 3 successful strategies. One is we got a lot of luck with social media. I think a lot because it had to do with the nature of our problem. And so just using different channels to talk about the issue from different perspectives, from the employees to the businesses, to the consumers feeling that pain point. There was a lot of effort in early years to really just explain that. And as a result, we had inbound leads. So our early customers came through inbound leads, and we're able to generate some attention from a global financial institution who saw the potential of digital tipping. And so we partnered with them last year to create a pilot. And I organized that, designed that as a kind of pilot study with my background, and selected different types of hotels in different kinds of segments. And we tested to see where the most adoption was and to see where there are common patterns in user behavior. And that all happened in the fall. And we had that data. And then, the industry changed. But from that, we were able to, get a network of customers, and we're now leveraging the network effect. So we had a Hilton, we're working with Hilton, we have like an Embassy Suites, we're scaling that way. And there's hospitality groups. So it's really understanding kind of the way that the industry is structured, and going, just using a combination of direct to consumer, or direct marketing and inbound leads. But we've not had a lot of huge marketing budgets. So Sachin and Alfred, when you talk about your strategies, I'm curious to know like how big your teams are, how big your budgets are that enable you to go to trade shows back in the past, because they're expensive. And and Sachin, you talk about being able to kind of go to those customers and say, all right, give them what you want. Can you afford to fail? Like how, fail often, fail early, fail often, but how much can you afford to fail? So I think there's some, the strategies really resonate, but then there's the reality for, just starting out. If say you're a first time founder or you're bootstrapped. And I think, I'm not sure who's listening, but, when you start out, you really are, just on the ground. And what do you do to get these resources to enable you to do those things that later prove effective? So that's my, that's my take on hearing the things that have worked, because those would work for our company, and also, the going to the consortiums and trade shows, but those are hugely expensive. And right now we're working, like I said, with a customer who has 38, sites, and we're trying to develop an analytics platform and they're not willing to pay for it just yet because of this context. So there's just a lot of details in the negotiation of how do you afford to fail and how do you give customers what they want. And there's a process, I think, that you can't just say, all right, I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to blow my budget here. And then, you don't know if it's going to work. So the risk that's involved in going from your idea to EP, I think is something to really think about.
Okay, so Alfred, Sachin, any tips?
Yeah, I guess one of it has to do with controlling your burn rate so that your risk is lower. I tend to not agree with, you have to decide what you're optimizing for. If you're optimizing for an Elon Musk sized company, that pathway is very different. And I tend to go from idea to validation to launch, micro venture. So focus on a micro venture, which I say is anywhere between 2 to 20 million in revenue and max potential. And then if we see the forward potential, then adding that venture fuel. And so that comes down to your burn rate and keeping it very low. And then also being very process oriented in how you validate your concept. So when I'm typically under Elevation Ventures, since we're building multiple ventures and testing concepts out, in which many do fail, we try to make sure that the spend as we're validating a concept is very low. And we haven't gone and built a bunch of technology and then we fail, which we've done that too, but that's not what I advise to do, is really come up, just like I told you in our first company, we had HTML screens. This was before InVision and all these tools existed. So we had to go create HTML. Nowadays, you can create everything with so many tools. Just create these mock-ups and get in front of customers. As far as you're asking about marketing budget to get in front of customers, there's so many ways to get in front of people that don't cost a ton of money. There's a tool called WeConnect. It's we-connect.io. I'll type it in the chat. It's a LinkedIn automation tool. And I actually just, so I spend a lot of time asking other founders what their hacks are. And that is one hack that came to me in the last 2 months, which I know people have been doing this for years now. And so I'm a little late to the game on that one, but that one, it's maybe $50, $60 a month. I mean, if you can't afford that, you should quit entrepreneurship. You need to figure that out, right? And the $60 a month, you can go out and automatically connect with numerous different segments on LinkedIn. And if you don't know how to write a message, I'm decent at it. There's plenty of people who are better than me at it. I'm happy to talk to anyone about your particular message, but it's ultimately about testing. And so find a small group, test a message. If you start getting responses, great. If you don't, adjust the message. And then once you start getting responses, go to a larger group. So I'd say WeConnect is a good one. I am a huge fan of channel partnerships. And so the same strategy I talked about finding advisors and then getting customers, you can already find people who have those natural relationships. And so in the Prevention Cloud world, it was benefit brokers. They already were engaging with our end customers. They had a financial incentive to do so. We never even had to pay them commissions. And to this day, even though I'm not running that company anymore, my partner who's running it, they have 0 salespeople and they're still growing every year. And it's because of these channel partnerships. So channel partners, again, people that are already aligned with your customer and they care about the problem you're solving and they're glad to take what you have to that customer base. Yep. And just you have to make sure that you're short to the point and you really are solving something better than the next guy.
Yeah, I would echo. I mean, you don't want to spend, you want to be able to do things multiple times, right? And if you're putting all your eggs, your financial eggs in one basket, that limits your chances of success. So anything you can do that saves money, the suggestions that Sachin has, that's what you should err in the direction of.
Okay, thanks, Alfred. Well, we're already at 19 minutes left. Niran, you want to tell us a little about your experience of finding those customers, and I expect yours to be pretty interesting. You mentioned LaGuardia, and so I assume you're dealing with some more quasi-governmental type relationships, which I know can have their own set of fresh hells to deal with. But go ahead.
Yeah, Delta is it's a private organization, but it's built. They're building a new airport. But we've worked with governmental organization before, and our customers are basically, first of all, when I started the company, it was built based on my relationship, my industry work on 10 plus year working in the industry. So that's how I started. Right now, all our larger deals are coming from just thought leadership. That's that's the biggest thing for us. Putting out webinars, going to events and like having a booth, and just putting out publications and putting out blogs every few weeks. People find that it's a useful way to like understand what the company does. The webinars we're starting to do right now are more conversational, like more like podcast based, because there's a huge crowd of people who just want to listen to people's thoughts and like how they've solved problems. So we do that, and then we have a inside salesperson that basically her job, and the team, the whole business development team's job is to connect with people over LinkedIn and do a drip chat funneling, and then campaigns to get those leads. So yeah, because our deals are pretty large, and it takes like a few months to close them. But as Sachin was saying, channel partnership has big for us. We just signed a partnership with one of the largest logistics distributor in the US. And so because they already have all the relationships, and they just help us move faster in those aspects.
Okay, now for your products, is a lot of it outsourced, or are you creating everything from the sensor to all those relationships and any software?
Everything is like, I mean, we have integration with legacy and solutions like, with Microsoft. We have partnership with Microsoft and Oracle, who help us to also get more customers somehow, And so yeah, everything is, we have a hardware team that is based out of Pennsylvania, and our production house is in San Diego. So that's where everything ships from. The chips, we make our own. We don't make all the chips, but we buy internationally. A lot of those chips are from there. So there's a lot of supply chain that has to be managed. And then we have a software team that basically builds our dashboard and analytics and the predictive analytics part. And then we have a sales and marketing team that basically also helps support the customer. So our customer are really old school. They expect us to do everything in a way sometimes, even simple thing like, inviting his friend to the platform, or adding adding a company on the company list drop down. They will just ask you for these very simple things sometimes. And we still help to some extent. We still help them to do some of those small things. That's been one of our key reasons to make them dependent on us for all the time, even for smaller things. Just make us dependent on them, so they will never leave us.
Okay, yeah, because that sort of led me to a question. You mentioned supply chain. Have you has COVID really presented any challenges in that regard for you?
Yeah, so COVID has brought both the things. COVID has actually increased our business a little bit more than before, because we have sensors that can ensure social distancing and help do contact tracing. So that has made a really positive impact in terms of like the growth. But on the supply chain side, we have in the beginning, there's a lot of delays in the beginning. The second, right now we have huge taxes. So because of the trade war, we have to pay a lot of taxes that was not there before. So those are the two impacts of the supply chain recently.
Oh, great, thank you so much. So at this point, does anyone have any questions? We'll open it up to Q&A. If you
I think
want
there's some questions on chat.
Yeah, I don't know. Deepti, what do you think? Do we want to ask, maybe if you want to go through the list and we can have people actually ask their questions, or you just want to read them off?
Sure. Maybe I'll just take the questions that are already there in the chat. Thank you so much. First of all, you guys have actually given us so many insights, which are, really very helpful for all the people who are right now going through this process. And I have to say myself also learned quite a bit of tricks and tips from you guys that we can pass on for sure. So one of the questions that was asked in the beginning was for To Genie, which was, Rahul Handa says that it's a brilliant idea. The question is, how do you find the initial test customers? So I believe you did touch upon that, but maybe if you can kind of also say, like, really when you are in the, not even in the MVP stage, you're really just thinking of the idea. How do you really go about that? Would you like to touch upon that, Elle?
Yeah, so like I said, you know, we have gone into really just preserving cash and not doing, you know, just doing very limited product development. And just through a single page, landing page, we have gotten, you know, consistently a lead every day from different sectors. So the customers are coming to us. And we've got a cafe, we have a hair salon, we got a dental agency. They're just, these people are coming to us, and so we're testing that. And so it's not been a lot of effort. The question to me is, where do you then bury in and pursue, you know, which is the one that's going to really take off? But right now it's all about, you know, transactions. And so we're really testing who's going to be quickest to adopt, who's going to have the most transactions a day, and just kind of like pushing everything else to the side. So how do we find it? We just getting content out there, the message out there, and just, you know, shaking trees. It's just it's a bunch of hustle right now. Yeah. I think anything that's, yeah. Was there another question that was asked I saw in the chat about To Genie?
I'll go through that in a while. In the meanwhile, maybe I'll ask the next question from Tim to actually everyone. And that is something we also find at Lisa that people have an issue with, is kind of finding the right first teams, or sometimes even finding co-founders. And so, for instance, Tim is right now saying he's interested in hiring people. How did you select, find, and build your teams at an early stage? And the question that we often get is, how do I find a co-founder? And what to look for in a co-founder, if at all. So, I mean, I would say one by one, maybe Alfred, you can start with that that question, if you know, if at all you would like to shed some light on that.
Sure. So it's very different finding a co-founder versus hiring people. Co-founders like getting married, right? So you're gonna be with this guy for, you know, many, many years, and I'm just not, I don't have a lot of confidence in meeting somebody that you haven't known for a while and you know, having them be a co-founder. That said, there are some very, very successful startups that have happened that way, where they met somebody, had an idea, they just hit it off, and it works. So it's different. Hiring people, you know, everybody you hire into your company, you know, it's going to set the culture for a long time. So make sure. A lot of people say, do you want rock stars? You want a culture fit? You know, and most people say that you should prioritize the culture fit versus the rock star nature. And I think that's important. You don't have to hire people as employees. You can hire as consultants, advisors, if you think somebody's a rock star and you're not sure about the fit yet. But you know, again, I'm a big fan of going through your network and getting references, because as a small startup, you don't have that many swings at the plate, to use a baseball analogy, and you want to make sure you know what you're getting when you're hiring people.
Right. Thank you so much, Alfred. As well as Niran, you touched about this point a little bit, that you have had some teams and some person who's doing you know, only marketing on LinkedIn, etc. So how did you go about finding your, you know, the first team members and people to work with?
Yeah, I think my technique of hiring a person is basically, what am I missing, and like what do I don't have, and I'm gonna have another person like challenge me and contribute in you know, something that I don't know, or something that I lack. So yeah, I mean, I'm more engineering focused or product focused, so we have a person that's more growth focused, you know, and so the diversity is super important. We really love diversity, although it brings a lot of conflict in the conversations. Like, you know, it's the positive critical thinking that ultimately makes the company grow. Yeah, that's true that, I've had co-founder leave. So it's always tough, but that's why you always have to have proper documentation for all the paperwork so that nothing goes crazy. From the first day, right? That's very important to have everything documented. But yeah, right now I know I've become better at hiring people, and I think we have a really, really strong team with very diverse people. I always look at diversity, like, does the person bring something new to the company?
Right, nice. I think one of the questions that would also be like what Tim wanted to ask was that as a startup, you do not have too many resources, right? So the team who's joining you is kind of also buying into the vision of your company.
Yeah.
And maybe, or Elle, whoever wants to kind of, just pitch into that as to how do you really get people on board without really paying them the market value, for instance, in the beginning.
Yeah, again, for me, it is really the mission that draws people on board. And they just have a deep sense of commitment to this problem of, wage equity. And also it's something that people experience themselves. So it's palatable, it's visceral. So yeah, people have stayed, and we're bootstrapped. And we're creative with interns, and I like, as Alfred mentioned, to go to the network. And my background is in education, and as a teacher, I know that groups coalesce when they have common values and they know who works well with each other. I often ask one person or an intern or consultant, who would work well with you and who would work well with me? Because they had experience working with me, and I found that really, really successful. Where I lose the team it's been resources. So I do like to get to that last part of like, how did you all get to your fundraise? Because the glue has come undone because people have had to leave because we weren't able to keep them on, pay for them. But as far as like raising a team of pretty dedicated people who've gone to evangelize, I feel like I've really scored like high marks in that, and we enjoy the process. It's not a question of like, should we do this, but how? So when you have these core values, you don't ask like, should we or not do this? Like, how do we accomplish this? How do we do that? So it's a very much like a action oriented, and it's all about marketing and adoption right now. So it's clear what we need to do. We just need resources to like accelerate.
Right, that's a great answer. Sachin, do you have something to add to that as well?
Yeah, I would add one thing. With regards to hiring, I think initially you need to pause and consider whether you need to hire at all. There's so many automation tools right now, and I think not enough people pause to see, is there something that can be done to automate what it is that you need done? And then number two, again, this is another piece where it's not necessarily rocket science. I agree completely with Elle that it's about your mission and selling that mission. And when I say sell, I mean just projecting it well. And you don't want someone to join something that they're not very interested in. So just be true and honest about where you want to go and how you want to get there. Because some people want to be on a rocket ship, or others want to kind of sail towards the destination. And that's very important to know. I'm a big fan of Strength Finders. The Strength Finders test, if you're a founder and you're going to be working very closely with someone, I think you shouldn't do it unless you both have done the Strength Finders test or something similar. And that helps you to understand a little bit about the personality that you're going to work with. And then also, as Alfred mentioned, you don't necessarily need to go from 0 to 1. There's different degrees underneath and testing. And if it's a lower level kind of staff position, not your partner, I think you can test freelancers and test a few of them. Our thesis in PeopleWorks, one of our startups, is that we think many people are just going to hire less. And we're seeing that in a lot of the startups we have, where you're able to scale with far fewer employees.
Yeah.
So for those employees that you do need to bring on, start them as freelancers if you can. And sometimes I like to hire 3 doing the same exact job, and you'll clearly be able to benchmark who was better and who you enjoyed working with. And that's another thing as founders, this is such a stressful life. Make sure you actually, one of my first employer out of undergrad, they used to say, we only hire people that we want to have a beer with. And I've carried that with me forward in all of my ventures, because life is short and everybody sees COVID. And I think it's important to remember you're spending often more time in this business than you will with your family, and just make sure you want to spend time with these people.
Perfect, thank you. Maybe we'll take the one last question because of the time. I'm just watching that. So that's coming from Manish, who says, it is a good idea to offer a prototype at a cost, or aren't we setting a wrong precedent right in the beginning if we're offering a prototype at no cost? I would let maybe Alfred, if you want to answer that question.
At some point, you got to separate people from their money. But then again, every market's different. So, I mean, in our case, we try to get people to pay for things as soon as possible, even if it's just a small sum, because getting through a large company's purchase department is actually a pretty big win and a pretty good indicator of traction. But I mean, every market's different.
Right. So I guess in view of time, we would just close here. I would say thanks a lot to everyone for coming here, joining us, and lovely insights from you, Alfred, Elle, as well as Niran and Sachin. Edward, would you like to close and make a closing statement if you have one?
Yeah, sure. Just to reiterate what Deepti just said, thank you all so much for attending, and for the panelists, this has been great. For those in attendance, as I mentioned, this will be recorded. If you look at the invitation, you can find any of us really, on LinkedIn if you have any further questions. And that's it. Thank you for attending. Again, thank you so much to our panelists, and a special shout out to Hira for putting all this together. It's really appreciated. Thank you all so much.